So I've been wanting some new camera equipment lately. There's nothing wrong with the equipment that I have now. It works great and it gets the job done. But my equipment is a little outdated. Just a little bit. But still, I think it's worth sharing with you guys exactly what I use to shoot my videos. Now, I've always seen these what's in my bag videos on YouTube and I love it. I love seeing what people have in their kits and what equipment they use. Plus, you get to learn about different types of equipment and see what best suits you in case you're looking to get a new camera or lens or tripod. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with my Nikon D810 full frame DSLR camera, and it's actually the camera that I'm shooting on right now. This camera does both video and photography, which is really awesome because I do both and it has really great quality with both options. It shoots 60 frames per second at 1080 and has about 36.3 megapixels, which captures a lot of detail and is great for photography. It has live view, great autofocus, and both SD and CF card slots. Oh, and it has unlimited continuous shooting. Before this camera, I had a Nikon D60, which was a beginner amateur camera, and it only did photography and didn't have as many megapixels. I think it had about 10.2 megapixels, which is less than a third of what this camera has now, which was fine. I think I got it in high school, so I was just barely starting out photography. I didn't make videos back then, so I didn't really need that feature. But when I became a film student in community college, I definitely needed a good shift in gear, so I took all my savings, plus a little help from my dad, and I got this bad boy. Why did I choose Nikon? It kind of just happened. My dad got me the first Nikon camera as a gift, so I didn't really have a choice, and to be honest, I didn't know too much about camera brands or models to know which one was the best. But I love the brand and it just stuck to me, and now I'm a Nikon girl. Also, when I was a photo student in college, I had access to all the equipment that they had in the photo department, which was all Canon equipment, and all they mainly had were Canon cameras. So I experimented a lot with those, which were better quality than the camera that I had then. But I don't know, the image just never really convinced me. So I knew that going into being a film major, plus I wanted to travel a lot, I needed a camera that took great quality pictures and shot video as well. So the great thing about my camera gear is that it came in a bundle called the Filmmaker's kit. So I feel like I did save a lot of money buying everything all together as opposed to buying every product separately. So if you want to invest in a wide range of camera equipment, definitely look out for those kits or bundles. My next pieces of equipment are my camera lenses. So I have 3 prime lenses, a 35mm, a 50mm, and an 85mm, which are great for various distances and focal length. So if you didn't know what a focal length is, it's the distance between the lens and the image sensor. So basically how much of the image is in focus and how much is blurry. So in my 35mm lens, the camera is going to have more of the image in focus as opposed to the 85mm lens, which is going to have the subject in focus but everything else in the background super blurry. I will say one thing. When I was a film student, these lenses came in handy to me. And even now when I film these sit-down videos or videos mainly at home, these lenses are they're the best. However, in my opinion, because they came in a Filmmaker's kit, I feel like they were designed more for a professional take 1, take 2, take 3 set life with studio light and smooth and steady shots where you don't need to mess with focus as much, and you definitely don't need to zoom because prime lenses don't zoom type of environment. I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but let me put it this way. If you're looking to do outdoor guerrilla style shooting or vlog style shooting, then prime lenses aren't necessarily the way to go. Because you can't zoom with these lenses, you're constantly having to change them. So if you want a wider shot, you have to change them. If you want a medium or a close-up shot, you have to change them. And this goes for video and photography. When I travel, it is a little frustrating having to constantly change lenses all the time. And even though the quality is great, when you want to get a quick shot of something and you have to quickly zoom in or zoom out, you can't. You have to pause, look into your camera bag, find your lens, switch it out, and it's inconvenient. Plus, it's more gear that you have to carry around. So unless you're looking to get into a more studio set environment, or even sometimes a wedding, say if you're shooting portraits, or if you're shooting details, or the bride and groom getting ready, you know, something that doesn't require a lot of action, then probably invest in a good zoom lens. Again, this is just my opinion from personal experience, so don't come at me if you're like,
no, you can totally use prime lenses for any type of shooting, you dumb.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying from my experience, I'd rather use a zoom lens when I'm outdoors or traveling just to try to avoid constantly having to switch out my lenses. Okay, moving on. The next piece of equipment I have is an Atomos Ninja 2 video recorder. This baby is the reason I'm always looking up. It's my viewfinder when I'm filming myself, and it's pretty much my viewfinder when I'm filming anything and I'm not directly behind the camera. Or sometimes I am and I'm just too blind to see, so I use my handy dandy monitor. And apart from being just an extra screen, this monitor also records footage. You connect it to your camera, sync up the settings, and it's good to go. I used it a lot in student films, and I use it pretty much in all my videos now. The only thing I don't do is use it on the go. When I'm filming on the go, I really don't like using a lot of equipment and having everything just layered up on top of each other. I like to keep my load as light as possible, so if you don't want to attract a lot of attention, or if you're somewhere that you feel isn't as safe, probably don't bring this one outside. But other than that, it's great, it's extra storage, and it's a good piece of equipment to have, especially if your viewfinder doesn't flip over. Next is this external mic. This mic sucks. Don't get this mic. You can definitely get a mic with better quality. Rode mics are great, or Lav mics, which is what I'm using right now. Just don't get this mic. It came with the camera and it sucks. So these are the main things that came in my kit. There were a lot of other accessories like cables, chargers, UV filters, which I never use, but you get the point. I've had this camera and this kit basically for 5 or 6 years, and I'm not exactly sure how long it was out before I bought it, so it could be a little bit older. Nikon doesn't even sell this kit anymore. I think you have to get it from like a third-party site, but they've had other newer kits since then. But if you do find it, you'll probably find it a lot cheaper than what I paid. And maybe apart from the camera itself and the lenses, I would probably invest in newer versions of the other stuff. I know that their latest Filmmaker's kit has a camera that shoots in 1080 and 4K, and it has a zoom lens, and it comes with a handheld gimbal stabilizer and an Atomos Ninja recorder that's bigger and newer than the one that I have. Oh, and it comes with a Rode external mic, which is so much better than the one that came with this kit. I feel like I just convinced myself to buy this kit. I love my camera, but it is on the older side and it doesn't have certain features that newer cameras have. And I think the only real issue that I've come across is that I haven't been able to find a good handheld gimbal stabilizer that's compatible with this model. And it's a little bit on the heavier side, so I do find my hand shaking sometimes when I try to get a steady shot. But other than that, it's a great camera. The fact that it doesn't shoot in 4K really doesn't bother me that much because I absolutely don't need that right now. So just something to consider when you're buying a camera. What features do you absolutely need in that moment, and is it worth investing that extra money? Moving on to other pieces of equipment. I don't have an external mic or a boom mic that I use on my cameras, but I do have this lavalier mic that is just amazing. I started using it last year and it hasn't failed me yet. This was actually my dad's. He has a bunch of these and I'm not entirely sure how much they cost, but I'm pretty sure you can't even get this model anymore. They get the job done, and I definitely recommend investing in one, especially if you're going to be doing sit-down interview style videos. It comes with a little receiver that you hook up to your camera, so you just sync up the channels and you're good to go. Next up is my Mavic Pro Drone. I love my drone. It's compact, you can just fold it up and put it in your purse. It's lightweight, it weighs about less than 2 pounds. It flies up to 40 mph with no wind, it takes pictures, and it shoots video up to 4K. This is actually my second drone. Little backstory, I had my first drone for about less than a year. I went to fly it the day before Thanksgiving. So I'm flying my drone through this small little valley where you go behind some hills. All of a sudden, I'm looking at the screen and it goes completely black. I lost signal, my controller started beeping because I was running out of battery. So naturally I start to panic and I start running in the direction of where I thought my drone was. Luckily, I remembered that I had put a setting on it that if there were to ever lose signal again, it would just go back to its original takeoff point. The only problem was that I had set a max altitude for the drone since I was just a beginner. So I later found out through the flight logs that when it was coming back, it got stuck behind a hill, and since it was trying to go over it, it had the max altitude set, so it couldn't fly over and it couldn't go around, so it just stayed floating there. Long story short, I was so sad. I cried my eyes out. I even went back later with my dad and my brother. We hiked up that hill, followed the flight logs, took out my maps, and just tried looking for it. But it was a disaster. The mountain was a lot higher than I thought. We didn't have any water. We went off trail and ran into this huge snake, and I just knew I was never gonna see shooting my drone again. So now I have this second drone. I fly it well. I always make sure that I can see it not only in the screen, but in person as well. I took off the max altitude setting in case that disaster ever happens again, but safe to say, since that incident, I've become a much better drone pilot and I've gotten some pretty cool shots. Now this little guy is my GoPro Hero 4 Black. Silver. I think it's the black. I honestly don't use this camera as much as the rest. I won it in a raffle actually in a convention in Las Vegas. I wish it had a viewfinder, that's the only downside to it, but you can connect the image to your phone and just look at what you're filming from there. This is definitely great for any outdoor activity, extreme sport, bike ride, whatever. Just make sure you have all the appropriate accessories for it because they are important in case you need to prop it on something or take it underwater, or even put it on your head. So this camera is my Canon AE-1 film photography camera. I've had this camera before all the other cameras I've showed you, including my Nikon camera. I've had this camera since I was starting out as a photography student in college, and it's been with me ever since. Obviously, it's not digital. It takes 35mm film rolls of any brand and color, and I'm happy to say I've never been disappointed with the pictures I've taken on it. I feel like film or analog cameras are so much more exciting than digital cameras. You send it off to get developed, or in my case when I was in school, you develop that baby all by yourself. You get in that pitch black closet and you don't come out until you're ready. Then you get to play with a lot of chemicals and you just get in that dark room and watch the magic happen. And then you see your final masterpiece. That is, of course, if you followed all the other steps correctly and you did them right, or else you just wasted hours and hours of your time. It truly is beautiful. But I definitely recommend getting one of these. They're inexpensive, they last a long time. I've had this one for about a decade now. Or you can just rent one, borrow one, and play around with it. But I think it's helpful in mastering exposure, shutter speed, and composition, because you can't just look at the picture you've taken, decide you don't like it, and then just erase it. It teaches you to be more aware of what you're shooting and not just point and shoot and erase. Plus, that film grain you get, even if it's just slightly, it's amazing. Looking at it now, I'm pretty proud of the kit that I've managed to build over the years. Of course, I would love some new equipment, but I'm working with what I've got and investing in only what I absolutely need. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.